So we have a couple other things we're going to talk about. We want to talk about these individual cards, but I also want to talk about speculating about how the game we think is going to play. So maybe we could talk about that first. For one thing I wanted to know about was how are they going to handle like the RNG aspect? So like Destiny had the dice. Like, what's the RNG mechanism within this game, do you think?
Well, the normal RNG in a card game is just what cards you draw. And a lot of that influences how big is your deck, how big is your hand size, how many cards do you draw, particularly in a turn or a round or however it's structured. That's often what influences the main RNG elements in a normal card game, and this appears to be kind of following that. I haven't seen any randomized elements referenced anywhere in this game thus far, so I can only assume it's just going to be the cards you draw is the random element.
Okay. What do you think about that?
Yeah,
I think that's mostly pretty fine. I mean, I'm kind of used to that from a wide range of card games, so that makes sense to me. I am definitely curious to find out those details. What is our hand size going to be? How big are our decks? How many copies of cards can we have? We haven't seen any of that stuff. And, there are references to base cards throughout the article and throughout the discussion of the game. And like, that's going to determine how much health we have. We don't know what that number is going to be either. So, I mean, maybe these base cards will determine a lot of the numbers of our deck, right? Maybe that'll determine our hand size and our deck size and our health, and all these values will be variable based on what base we pick. I mean, I don't know.
I think a good precursor to what this game is going to be is actually the Star Wars deck builder game they released not too long ago, because it's a similar mechanic as far as the bases and you have a leader, but it doesn't seem like you're attacking the leader, you're attacking the bases. So, and the same thing with the deck builder from what I've read. I haven't played it yet, but from what I read, first person in the deck builder to destroy 3 bases wins. But to get to the bases is difficult because you have other game elements that prevent you from going directly for the base. So maybe it could be something similar like that that's going to happen with this game.
Yeah, I'm picturing this running a little bit like Magic, where I think in Magic the player has essentially a health pool, and you have to attack the player to win. And in this case, you're just kind of replacing that player's health pool with the base's health.
Right.
I don't know if they're going to have to kill all of your like characters to be able to attack your base, and that I would imagine probably yes, but we don't have those rules yet. We do know that there's like 2 play areas. There's ground and there's space that's being divided into, and you can put your cards in either area based on the type, if they're spaceships or ground characters. And presumably, I would presume that if the opponent has no, if you play an X-Wing and the opponent has no other spaceships opposing your X-Wing, you can attack their base with your X-Wing. And maybe if they play a TIE fighter or something, then you have to kill the TIE fighter first before you can attack the base, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's probably the case unless you have maybe there's certain card effects that let you go around like an event or something, let you like fly past another ship or something like that, and then you can just directly attack the base or whatever.
Yeah, or it could be optional. Maybe you could just go for the base and ignore their guys, or you can kill their guys. Which would make sense as well. I mean, probably you'd want to kill their guys just so they have less things to use against you, but maybe you want to also rush down their base, so that might be part of the strategy.
Well, I think, that's what it sounds like it'll be, right? It sounds like it'll be your choice, right? There's consequences if you rush their base and they're able to out damage you and kill you before you kill their base. So that's also something else you got to keep in mind. Also, momentum, right? Because there is a point of no return in any game, any sport, whatever. when it comes to momentum, right? Where if this person gets too much momentum, your game's over. So I definitely think it's going to probably be something like that, where they want you to make that choice. Like, are you going to deal with the ground support? Are you going to deal with the air support? Or is your deck like, I see decks being primarily space or with some ground support or vice versa. It's I wanted to talk about that. That mechanic, I think, is very unique.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
interesting. Like
remember.
if you build
Oh,
a deck that's like all, built around space stuff and you can control that area pretty well, then you're susceptible on the ground kind of thing. So you kind of like most likely they're going to have to fortify both areas.
Yeah, I'll be very curious if the optimal deck is going to be like a pretty even split, or if it's going to be more like a 75-25 kind of deal, or, what this is going to pan out to be.
or maybe it just depends on your opponent and um maybe there's gonna be I know this is gonna happen for sure. I know they're gonna have things that can go space and ground. Like
I don't know if they're going to
Certain
have.
certain ships that can go both ways or something.
I don't know if they'll have units that can transition to both. I mean, maybe at some point that would make sense, but I do see. I mean, even already we have units like Vader who can, even though he's a ground unit, he can deal damage to the ships, I believe, with his on attack ability. So just because it's a ground unit doesn't mean it can't affect space units, as far as I can tell here.
Okay.
but that is very that's the most interesting part I think of this game. I don't think we've seen anything like that anywhere at least in a card game, right? That sounds like a more of a miniature game type thing, but in a card game having the two player areas that you have to worry about, I don't see how they could have games last 7 minutes with all these facets.
I mean, I've played card games before that had the concept of having different lanes that you play in. I'm more familiar with it in like digital card games, but
Mm.
it can work. It makes things a little interesting.
How do you? Okay, go ahead.
I've
You're
played
good.
like Marvel Snap, for example. That's a really casual like phone game, but it has multiple lanes that you play in, and you have to consider and think about them all, and that kind of adds to the strategy of it.
So
Mm.
looking at these cards, Mcbober, like before we talk about the individual cards, have you been able to ascertain what all these different symbols and stuff mean? And how do you think you pay for cards in this game?
So I could speculate about what these things are. Top left sure looks like resources to me based on the context of the other cards. Bottom left is the red. I assume is probably damage, and right is probably health. The red 4 would be on Luke, for example, would be his damage, and the blue 7 I think would be his health. That would be my assumption there.
Yeah, I can see that.
For the top right, I'm guessing those are like his classification of some kind. This might affect your deck building, perhaps. Like you can only use cards that have these symbols,
Mm.
but I don't know if that's means you can only play with those or you get some bonus for playing with those. I don't know exactly what that means yet. But if we look at the cards that's all been revealed, everything has one of those symbols so far that match either Luke or Vader. So all of Luke's cards, for example, all the good cards that we've seen have that. I don't know what exactly that symbol, how to describe it, but it's the yellow kind of off-white looking symbol that he has on the bottom there. All the cards have that on it, like Leia and the X-wing. And same with Vader, all the cards have that kind of black symbol that he has on the bottom there as well. I'm guessing that's just like a general like bad guy symbol. I don't know if that's supposed to be an Empire symbol or a bad guy symbol or what that represents. I'm not familiar with that emblem from Star Wars. None of these look like Star Wars symbols I'm used to. They all seem kind of abstract. So I'm guessing these are some sort of like faction or card concept, like ways to divide
Yeah, it looks like maybe
things.
this tan thing is like maybe the good guys, and this black one, this purple black one, is that purple or black? Can't tell.
I thought it was black,
Is
but it could be purple. It could be hard
Yeah,
to tell.
that's the bad guys. And then it's interesting how like Wing Leader doesn't have one of the other colored symbols on it. Like it only has the good guy symbol.
Yeah. Same with
Same with
Maximum
like Your Only
Firepower.
Hope.
Only has the bad guy symbol.
Right. So like this can be used in any deck or whatever, but then like Tarkin maybe can't be played with Vader or something, because like Vader has this red one, or maybe this
I,
red thing like doesn't really matter.
I would
Like
imagine there are certain cards that you would only affect like red characters, maybe events or weapons, if
you can
weapons
play
are
with
a thing.
all, like maybe you can play with all the good guys. You can use that entire card pool, but you like there's certain interactions that work well together if you like play within a certain faction or something.
Yeah, I mean, I'd imagine there's gonna be things that care about the symbol of the card you play. I think Vader right now references at the black symbol, his at the action on the like the wide Vader. I don't know what you would call that. After you play the card with the little black symbol, he gets to do stuff. Um, that's really the only reference to these symbols that I see so far. I think Luke. Oh yeah, Luke also he can give a shield to one of the good guy cards. I guess that's what we're calling them. But I don't know if every good guy is going to have that symbol or just the ones we've seen so far. But I assume these are going to determine like interactions between abilities and also maybe your deck building. But it's hard to really know a lot until we see more cards and maybe get the deck building rules.
Mm.
Okay. So
But
do you want to have any other hot takes on any of these cards that we haven't talked about yet? Like, are we
well, you did ask about how do we pay for things, and
okay?
that part I can only guess. Obviously resources are a thing. We see cards have resource costs. We have references to resource costs, like on You're My Only Hope. It makes things cheaper. Um, but as far as how you get resources, I don't know. They haven't said about it. I don't know if we're gonna have resource tokens or how
It's
this is.
FFG. We're definitely going to have tokens for resources.
I mean, we have some other tokens on some cards being referenced, so yeah, we might have resource tokens. And I don't. Maybe our base tells us how we generate resource tokens and how many we get, or it's some other. Maybe we play cards that do it, like Magic. But I feel like that's not a very popular system, the whole Magic mana thing. So I doubt they're going to go that way. I'd imagine it's probably on the base, but I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
Now, to speculate a little bit about the bases, I wonder if the bases are going to have their own special abilities, how many different bases they're going to be, or do bases come with every leader, or can you mix and match the bases based on a certain strategy? That's going to be very interesting.
Yeah,
I mean,
I feel like the bases are going to be very impactful, and we haven't seen them yet.
yeah, I think you're going to be able to choose a leader and choose a base, and that's going to be part of like the whole deck building is which of those two things you're choosing to start with.
Yeah,
That's going
because it's
to be like the
unlimited.
starting
That's
point.
what they
Yeah.
keep. That's what they keep pushing down our throats. Is like unlimited, unlimited, unlimited possibilities. So, um,
Yeah,
yeah, you're
I feel
probably
like
right there, Paul.
choosing your base it might not even be as important as who your leader is, like on that level. I think it's going to be a big deal.
Do you want to talk about these individual cards and like speculating? I don't know. It might be way too early on like whether you think that card's good or not. Like, are we at that point where we can we can do that?
I don't think I know enough. Like the wing leader mentions giving experience tokens to a card. I have no idea what experience tokens do. Can every card use experience tokens? How do cards use them? Like, can they level up? Do only certain cards level up? I don't know what this concept is. It sounds neat. I like the idea of cards that level up, but I don't really know what this does or what it means. So it's hard to speculate. Tarkin looks good. I mean, he searches your deck for cards, and you get to put one in your hand. I mean, that sounds like an ability that would typically be pretty strong in almost any other card game. So it's hard
Well,
to
yeah,
imagine that's not
you
good.
get two cards. I mean, that's pretty strong.
Yes.
I immediately saw. Obviously, my mind went to "You're My Only Hope." You guys know how my mind thinks. It's like free stuff, like friends in high places, in Destiny. Like, just give me the free
that
thing.
card was broken.
Yeah, so getting some to play something for 5 less, or for free if you only have 5 left on your base seems pretty good. Even, I mean, 5 less is at any point in the game seems pretty strong. I guess you have to pay 3 for this card though.
Yeah, it would suggest that your deck would need to be mostly expensive cards to make this worth it, or you would have to have some way to manipulate what the top card of your deck is.
Yeah. Well, my mind went there initially, was just, how can we, make this work?
Yeah, it might end up being really strong, if we can manipulate what the top card of our deck is, or if playing a deck full of really expensive cards is viable. It might depend on how resource generation works.
Yep. Well, are there any other of these cards that we want to talk about? I think we mentioned most of them here.
Well, we got to talk about the leaders. I don't think we've really talked about the leaders much. I think they're
What I'm trying to figure out. So it says once you get to 6, why are they saying he costs 6 up here? Is that because that's how much you need in order to flip him? Is that what it is?
There might be game effects or cards that affect cards that have certain costs. It might just be that sort of future proofing thing, or effects like that.
Like they're just putting the cost there just in case.
Yeah, like there might be a card, like an event that says destroy a ground unit that costs 5 or less, right? And you don't want that to affect your leader, so you give them a cost of 6 or 7. This is an example.
Well, I do think, as we talk about they do, it'll become easier because the leaders, they start off on like because that's an interesting mechanic in and of itself, right? So we got bases, don't know what they do, but you have these leaders, we kind of know what they do a little bit, which they have a side where they're kind of like affecting the game, but they're not in the game. And then after that, something happens to where you can get them in the game and they're fighting now. So that in and of itself is a very interesting mechanic. And
I just feel like pound for pound, Vader just seems better than Luke.
Yeah, he definitely looks stronger.
His backside here, he's doing a damage to a unit and a base, whereas Luke's just giving 1 shield. So, like, is a shield more valuable than does it just prevent at 1 damage? Because if so, then like Vader's just doing more on that side. And then when you flip him, he's doing 2 damage to a unit, and then again, Luke's just giving 1 shield. So it just seems kind of bizarre that he's just like straight up better. Like, how does that balance out?
I guess it kind of depends how shield tokens work and unit health and so on. Vader also costs 1 more.
Well, here's another.
Yeah, I mean, he costs 1 more to flip, but he's still better on this backside. Like, at least it seems that way to me, but I don't know.
If the way resource generation in this game works is really controlled, like if it's you get 1 extra resource every round or whatever, then if you get Luke one round earlier than Vader, that might be a significant advantage. But I don't know yet if that's how that's going to work.
Also, if you look at the epic action, it says if you control 6 or more resources, deploy this leader, in its parentheses, flip him ready him, and move him to the ground area. And then on the bottom right hand side, there's two costs actually that I didn't notice before. There's a 4 and then there's a 7. Curious what that could be.
I think it's telling you the
Invaders a
attack and
5 through
health
8.
that the card would have after you flip it.
I think I just figured out how they're going to do resources. I think it's going to be like Hearthstone. I think it's going to be based on the round. So round 1, you have 1 resource.
Yeah,
And
it
then,
might.
and then round 2, then you have 2 resources. Round 3, you get 3.
Yeah,
That kind of thing.
it very well could work that way. Wouldn't surprise me.
I mean, that system works pretty well in Hearthstone, I feel like. I don't know. Like that would
I'm
make
not
like this
familiar.
kind of card make sense, like where you don't want a bunch of 5 cost cards, because then you can't play anything in the first 4 rounds or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah, Mcbober, you were spot on about the 4 and the 7 representing the damage and the health. Because, if you look up this, the front side, the leader side is right here. Luke is 7 health with 4 damage, and Vader's 5 damage with 8 health.
I feel like this game is like just like Hearthstone. It's like you've got these units, they come out, they do a certain amount of damage, they have a certain amount of health, they have a certain amount of cost, they protect your base. Like it's like Hearthstone.
Yeah, I wonder if you'll be able to like defend with units the way you do in Hearthstone as well, or Magic. Magic also has that similar kind of thing where, when they attack you, you're directly to hit your main health. In this case, your base. You can choose or not to defend with a unit to absorb that attack. In which case, then I'd also wonder if can you defend with multiple units at once, and are they going to do that whole attack defense numbers game?
I think the way it'll be different from Hearthstone is in Hearthstone you have to be able to defend with your unit. It has to have like taunt or whatever.
I thought taunt was. It's been a while since I played Hearthstone. I thought taunt was. Is that the only way you defend?
Like
I thought that's they
the
can't
way that
attack
you
at all.
defend it in Hearthstone is it either had taunt, which would block the opponent from hitting your hero, or you basically played guys and then attacked the enemy to kill them, and that's how you defended yourself.
Yeah, you're right. You couldn't optionally block. I'm thinking of Magic. I think that's where you can optionally block stuff.
Yeah, so maybe in this game, like everybody can either everybody has taunt, like you have to kill them all and before you can hit the base, or you basically can decide whether you want to put your, I don't know, or maybe none of them do. Maybe none of them have taunt. I think it's either probably one or the other.
I
Either
guess we'll have to
they
wait and see.
either they all have to be killed, or none of them do. I don't know.
One thing I am curious about is the leaders. After they enter play as a ground unit and they die, do they turn back
Yep,
into the other side, or are they just gone from the game?
that's a good question. I would think they have to be gone, right?
I don't think you lose the game at that point. I just think you lose that
That
character.
Yeah,
leader.
the leader. You
Yeah,
just
I
can't
think
use it
so.
anymore. That would make
Yeah.
sense.
Like your objective in the game is to like protect your base and destroy the other base. But like if you lose Darth Vader in the process, then it happens.
It is
So be it.
interesting though that like they have epic action, which to me implies probably like once per game you can use that action, which would suggest that maybe there's a way they could flip back into this form to, like, why would it be a once per game restriction unless there was an opportunity to use it more than once? If that makes sense.
Yeah, like some saucy thing where it's just like you bring them out, they do their damage, then you bring them, and I wonder if they've sustained any damage. Just bringing them back clear them. That'd be interesting to find out.
I doubt they're going to be able to flip back. I mean, I feel like that would be bizarre. I think the epic action is like it happens one time, and the strategy is when deciding when you want to flip into the other form. So obviously, like you said, Luke gets to flip in round 6. It's like if we're playing Hearthstone, you've got that 6 cost guy, which is coming out sooner. That unit is coming out sooner than the 7th cost guy.
Yeah.
So that's in a vacuum stronger. I think we figured out how cost works in this game. Like, I'm pretty sure that's how they're going to do it.
It seems like the most likely way they're doing it here.
Anyhow, is there any other topics left to explore here? I think we kind of went, discussed everything on my list at least.
I think we hit them pretty good here. We mentioned a little bit about actions going back and forth between each player. I wonder if they're going to do, action cheating like Destiny had of ambush effects, and if that'll be an archetype, or if they're just going to not go that route and just keep it at, player 1 does one
I
thing,
think
player
if
2 does another thing, and leave it
I
there.
think if they do, they're gonna control it because that was a problem that they. I remember articles they wrote about getting rid of it for the most part. Like, remember they changed Vibro Knife?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think they learned that giving out that action cheating abilities was it was a big deal, so they had to start reining it in. But
Yeah.
I hopefully that's one of those lessons they learned from that game, and they can apply it here.
Yes.
I mean, there's going to be an archetype that is trying to win fast using action cheating. Like they're going to make those cards. They're going to exist.
Yeah, I
Like
feel
that's
like if
just a
even if
certain template for these kinds of games. Like,
yeah, I think even if we don't have it like in the release set, eventually that'll be a thing. That seems like an easy design space to get into.
do you think that this game will have a mill win condition?
I was just that was
I'm really
literally the
curious.
question.
I have no idea.
I wasn't gonna say mill, but I was just gonna be like, will there be alternate win conditions? Because that can include mill, but that opens up to other things.
Is there mill in Hearthstone? Since that's basically what we're playing here.
Yes. In Hearthstone, the
Okay.
way mill works is after your deck runs out of cards, every time you try to draw a new card, you take damage. And for each subsequent card you fail to draw, you keep taking more and more damage.
Damn.
Which could work here as well. That might be a way mill works.
It seems like they're making like a Hearthstone reboot with like different
That
lanes
makes
where you
sense.
fight each other, like 2 different play spaces, and like instead of heroes, it's like bases and stuff like that. It's
It
like
makes
it
sense
seems
because then
very similar to that game.
it makes sense because then your base takes damage because you can't draw cards.
Yeah, your base that's just probably in the rules that your base has to take a certain amount of damage if you don't have any cards left to draw or whatever.
Mm.
Anyhow,
Also, I guess something else that they mentioned in their interviews, they brought up control, and they said their control games lasted about 20 minutes in the interview. So I wonder what that means because typically a lot of competitive players gravitate to control of some kind, right? And so that's why I think in the competitive scene, unless they make some FN type thing that just does crazy damage output, people are going to be more catering to control, which should make the games longer than they're promising.
I think it just depends on what ends up being more powerful. Again, I guess if you go back to Hearthstone as the example, that game has control versus like rush, face damage as definitely as a concept. Those you have decks that focus on either one, and kind of just based on the card pool at the time and where the meta's at, the best deck can go either way.
Hmm.
Sometimes you get some
Yeah.
decks that just go face and they don't
Pirate
care about anything
Warrior.
else.
Is that the one? Pirate Warrior?
Yeah, that was one
That
of
thing
the.
just comes in, or Murlocs or whatever those guys. They just come in and they just try to kill you by like turn 4 or 5. They're just coming in crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
But
Hearthstone always had some rush decks that existed.
but if you can hang in there, if you can like withstand the onslaught, then they basically become super weak, like mid to late game.
Yeah,
I think the more we talk about this game, like I've said this 10 times, but I just feel like this is going to be Hearthstone 2.0.
Is Hearthstone like not in production anymore?
No, it's a game. It's a great game. It's very popular. It's like a phone game, like a you know digital. But I think they have like tournaments and stuff, right? I mean, people are pretty into that game.
I played it for a while. It's been a couple years since I played, but for a good long while, I played it.